All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to office hours this morning. Excuse me. Before we get started, I'm just going to assume you all can hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and talk. And if you can't hear me, then make sure to put a message on there. Let me know that you can't hear me. Just want to go over a few quick ground rules, real quick. I'm only going to be answering questions that are asked during the office hours. So if you asked a question an hour ago, and you're here now waiting to get an answer, go ahead and repost that on here. That's just because I want to make sure that I'm answering questions for people that are present in the office hours. And then I also want to mention that this is live. I am coming at you from my home. I do have a dog and she might bark or something like that. So if somebody comes to the door, I may have to go answer that real quick and come back. And then the last thing that I want to mention is if you ask a question that can be easily answered, or that you can go to a certain thing on the website and get this worked out, I'm going to send you in that direction instead of going through a whole thing to answer your question. And that's just so I can answer as many questions as possible. So an example of something like that would be, how do I fix my slice? If that's the case, I'm just going to send you to our Never Slice Again section on the website, and that whole course will get you in the best shape with your slice. Far better than what I could demonstrate here in my office. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I will start with Marcus H here, and that will get us started. So if you posted a question before Marcus H, and you're here right now, go ahead and post that, copy and paste it and put it above, and then I'll go ahead and answer those. So let's go ahead and get started. Marcus H says, do you have any good drill to determine the speed of the greens? So really the best way to kind of get a feel for the greens is just go putt a few before you go out and play to get a good feel for it. I mean, the only way to really know the speed of the greens is to have a stimp meter. But to have a really good feel for the greens, I'd recommend going and putting on the greens. So most golf courses have some sort of practice green that you can go and roll a few on before you get started. So that would be my best recommendation, just to kind of get a feel. I would putt into the green. If you're playing on some grainy greens, I'd putt into the grain and away from the grain and across the grain, just to kind of see how that kind of makes the speed change a little bit. Some places the grain does, depending on the grass, the grain's not really going to make much of a difference. But sometimes it does. Most of the courses here in Florida have some grainy greens, and they can make a difference in the speed for sure. So no real drills necessarily to figure out the speed. I mean, there are some great speed control drills, or length control drills, where you can go. And the ladder drill is a really great one. So just to talk about the search engine on the website, in the upper right-hand corner of the page, there is a search box. If you search that, if you use a key term, you can find all kinds of videos. So speed control, you can search that, and you'll find plenty of drills for that. So that's what I would recommend. But the ladder drill is one of my favorites. That's from our Toss to Golf putting system. So I'd highly recommend that one, and taking a look at that. All right, so Ricky W says, to hit the forward shaft lean and flush impact, I need to fixate 2 inches in front of the ball. Ball is centered in my stance. Right-handed, right eye dominant. Used many cans of foot spray to check impact. Any drills? So I'm not sure exactly what the question is here. So Rick's saying that that he's fixating on a point that's 2 inches in front of the ball, which is fine. A lot of what golf is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So I'm guessing you're maybe fixating on that spot 2 inches in front to kind of help you release to that area, or help you to hit the ground in that area. And that's completely fine. You just got to keep adjusting whenever that comes around. So if you actually start to top shots, or maybe you're releasing the club too late, or you're not getting the right feeling, or getting the right result, you may need to change your feeling to get what you want. But all of that sounds fine. I mean, to get forward shaft lean and flush impact, you're fixating on a front spot 2 inches in front. You're adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. You want forward shaft lean and flush impact. So you're just fine there. And you've used Kansas spray to check your impact, which is good. If you're looking for forward shaft lean, there's all kinds of reasons why you may not be getting forward shaft lean. The number one reason that I see is there's basically two things: casting the club in the downswing, so not generating lag. So if I grab a club here, that's not generating lag. So in the downswing, you're casting, you're starting down just like that. That's one of the biggest reasons for not getting forward shaft lean. So I'd be looking at that. And the drills to fix casting would be our top speed lag section. You know, one of the pieces of the top speed golf system, one of the 5 pieces, very, very important. The second biggest piece that I see is steep in the downswing. So in the downswing, that shaft, as you're coming down, the butt end is pointed inside of the golf ball. That's the number 2 thing I see, because when that shaft is steep, what has to happen is you've got to do that and to turn that club, to get that club going underneath plane, and you got to stand up out of it. And when you stand up, you have to flip to get to the golf ball. So that makes you release the club early, and it also makes you lose that forward shaft lean. So those are the 2 biggest things. The drills to fix that would be the move, going to the move section. So the best way to get to the sections on the website is to click the house icon. That'll take you to the homepage, and then you can scroll down and it'll show you all the courses there. So the 2 best drills that are the 2 biggest things that I see. Now, there could be other things going on, but it's really, really impossible for me to know unless I see your swing. And I can't go through the 50 things that it could be in this whole office hour. So if you're looking for somebody to look at your swing and to give you, kind of an expert opinion on what's going on, show you exactly what you need to work on, I can only tell you the main things that I see and what I think might be going on. But for me to really know, I'd need to see your swing. So we offer an unlimited swing review program. This program is really, really great. You tape your swing, you send it to me or Robin, and we take a look at it, and then we shoot you back a video voiceover back, letting you know what you can do better, things that you can do to help you with your game. So highly recommended. If you're interested, just go to getareview.com. At the top of the page there, and that will bring you to the swing reviews page, and it'll give you all the information, a little bit of information. If any of y'all have any questions about swing reviews, feel free to post them on here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But yeah, so I can only tell you the 2 main things that I think might be going on, and those drills would be top speed lag and the move. All right, so Cindy K, let me get a drink here real quick. So Cindy K says, all my irons and hybrids seem to go the same distance. I've been told it's because I'm hitting off the bottom of the face or off of the club. If so, would more forward shaft lean help without digging the club in too much? Yeah, so you could be hitting it off the bottom of the club. That could be what's going on. It could be poor contact with your hybrids. That's kind of making it so you're not able to get as much distance as you are with your lower irons. Like I said, it's hard to say what's going on, but yes, absolutely. Forward shaft lean could definitely help you to get that strike higher up on the face. So I'll actually grab a hybrid and show you. I have a hybrid right here, and I got a ball right here. So if I have my hybrid here, and here I have let's say I have no forward shaft lean, and this ball is like that. So this is no forward shaft lean. Shaft is straight up and down. And you can see the strike would be a little bit lower on the face, but not super low. But that's if I'm coming in dead flush with the turf. Now let's watch if I get forward shaft lean. See where that strike moved up the face, right? So the ball's moving up the face because I'm leaning the shaft forward. So that's definitely going to help you to get some better strike on the face. It's also going to de-loft the face. So when you de-loft the face, that's going to give you more compression on the golf ball. It's going to allow it to go further. So yeah, forward shaft is definitely going to be something that I think could help you for sure to get more distance with your hybrids. Not only because the strike location is going to be moved up on the face, closer to the center, or even a little bit higher on the face, just above the center is good. That's going to help you to launch the ball better with lower spin. Then also the added compression that you'll get from forward shaft. So I just went over some things on Rick's question. The two biggest things that I see for people that are really, really struggling with forward shaft is casting and then coming down steep in the downswing. So I'd be looking at those two things in your swing. You got to film your swing. Look at what's going on. A lot of times, we feel something is going on, but as we all know, in golf, feel isn't always real. It's not always the reality. So the camera doesn't lie. We got to look at our swing on camera and see what's going on there. And then we have to adjust to get the desired result that we want. So I would highly recommend, working on some forward shaft lean. Probably need to work on some lag, maybe even the move, straight line release. Spine angle is another one. If you're vertical with your spine coming into impact, you're typically going to release right at the golf ball. So those are all things that I think you may need to work on for sure. Dave S says, any drills for right-hand golfer to rid the dip of the knee, hip into swing? Dip of the knee and hip into the swing. So I think he's talking about, this is something fairly common I see as well. And I actually struggle with this at times as well. I think he's talking about as he's coming into impact, he gets this action, and it's not the pushing and the pushing into the ground that really pushes the hip back. So there's actually a great video on the website. Well, really, the compression line is good. The compression line section, lots of great videos in there to help you use the legs and get this line, because usually if you're dipping in, you're usually bumping your hip forward, and your knees kind of getting past your leg. You're getting out of your compression line there. So the compression line is also a great section for that. But there's a drill specifically that I have in my mind right now. It's a kick the clutch drill, and basically it's a drill where Clay's talking about how in the downswing you want to feel like you're kicking the clutch. In the downswing, you feel like you're kicking that out, almost like you've got, something you're trying to punch a hole in the ground with your leg. You've got something underneath your foot, and you're trying to break it. That's the feeling that you gotta have, because when you're pushing into the ground, this is gonna straighten this leg out, and that's gonna push the hip back and the shoulders up, and that's gonna get rid of this. When you're pushing into the ground as much as you can, that's gonna help everything open up as much as you can. So if you go in the search box in the upper right-hand corner, just search clutch. Put the word clutch in there, CLUTCH, and there's a great drill in there to help you with that. So that's what I would recommend is that drill for sure. Abdul says, why am I standing up at the end of my backswing? I'm trying to avoid it, but I am not successful. So the number one reason I see for, you're referring to what's called early extension, where you're coming down into impact and you're doing this. So the number one reason why I see that is going on is because the steepness of the shaft in the downswing. So in the downswing, we want to be shallowing out this club. So what I mean by shallowing out is if you look at the butt end of this club, it's pointing at the golf ball, or maybe even a little bit beyond the golf ball, on the outside of the golf ball. And the reason why we want to have this is so that we can stay in our posture and rotate into impact. This club is on plane very, very nicely. We don't have to manipulate it in any way to get it to be on plane. Whereas if you were steep, meaning this butt end of the club is pointing inside of the golf ball, it's kind of vertical. What happens is typically what I see with players who are struggling with early extension is they'll do this number. They'll stand up out of it, and what that does is that drops that shaft down to get it back on plane, and so that you can hit a good golf shot. So what I'd recommend doing is looking at your swing on camera, video your swing from down the line, see where that shaft is pointing at when you're getting in the downswing. So lead arm parallel to the ground. Where's the butt end of the club pointing at? Draw a line use an app like V1 Golf and draw the line on there, right on the shaft here, right along the shaft. See where that butt end of the club is pointing. And if it's pointing inside the golf ball, you're definitely going to want to work on the move. And there's also plenty of videos that supplement the move section as well. And you could just search the word shallow on the website and find tons of videos to help you with that shallowing of the club so that it's on plane and you can stay in your posture. Now, if you are still having trouble staying in your posture and you see that you're shallowing out the club, we also have our stop early extension section, which is going to be more about getting to where you're rotating through impact instead of kind of standing up out of it. Because there could be some other things that are going on as well. But that steepening of the shaft in the downswing, that's really the number one thing I see for people that are standing up out of their swing. So that's what I would look at first. And if you are shallowing it, then I would definitely look at our stop early extension section. That's one of our courses on the website. If you click on the home icon and scroll down, you'll be able to see all the courses, and you'll want to click on the stop early extension section in there. All right. So Robert R says, if hands should be in front of the ball at impact in control direction, wouldn't this logic also apply to putting? Yeah. So you want some forward shaft lean in putting. Definitely. You don't want to have the club head out ahead of it. So yeah, you definitely want forward shaft lean in putting. Now, do you need to de-loft the face to get power for putting? No, you just need to have a little bit of forward shaft lean. You look at, you just want to have the force leading the mass. So a lot of putters are offset, but you're typically going to see pretty much all players are going to have forward shaft lean with the putter. Now, may not be a ton, but you definitely want some for sure. So great question there. But yeah, exactly. You definitely want forward shaft lean in putting, but you don't need to de-loft the face enough. So it's not like you need to have your hands way forward. You just need to have your hands a little bit forward to get that forward shaft lean. Ty Ann says, do we need to accelerate through the ball for a downhill putt? That's a great question. Yeah, your putting stroke, it really isn't going to change for an uphill putt versus a downhill putt. It's just a downhill putt. You're just not going to be able to hit it as hard as you would a normal, level ground or an uphill putt. You just don't hit it as hard. Let's say, a flat green, it's an 8-foot putt. You would putt that, a little over 8 feet to get it to the hole. Whereas let's say you had a downhill putt that was 8 feet, you would actually kind of feel like maybe you're putting at 6 feet to get to, so it doesn't go too far by the hole when you get it there, but you're still accelerating through the putt. So, and the same thing goes for an uphill putt, right? If you have an uphill putt that's 8 feet, you may need to feel like you're putting that ball 13 feet or 10 feet, depending on how severe the slope is, to get it to the hole. So it's the same stroke for all of them. It's just, you got to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. All right. So Greg B says, can you describe the best way to work on distance control with wedges, of course, and also with irons on approach? So the best way to work on distance control with your irons is to use something that's called the clock system. And what this is you think of your lead arm as a hand on the clock. So let me grab a wedge here and I'll kind of show you. All right. So, and you can do this not only with your wedges, but you could do this with all clubs as well. If you're looking at kind of hitting more of a knockdown, like knowing how far a certain iron goes with this type of swing. But the way you think about it is, okay, so this would be a 9 o'clock swing. So noon is right up here. This would be a 9 o'clock swing right here. This would be a 7:30 swing. A 10:30 swing would be, up there. So you think about your lead arm here as being the hand on the clock. So what you do is you take, your wedges out and you see how far you hit a 7:30 swing. Hopefully you go to your range and they have it incremented out for you. So, every 10 yards, maybe they have something. If they don't, maybe you can go out there and take some range buckets and put them out there every 10 yards, beach towels, anything like that. But I would have something, go out there every 10 yards, put something, and then measure that off so that when you're hitting shots that went 40 yards or it went 50 yards or if it went 60 yards. So once you have that set up, then you go out and hit, if you got the way I have my wedges set up, I got a 50, 54, and a 58. So I'd take my 58 degree, and I would go out there and I would take a 730 swing. So normal grip, have the club grip just like that to the end of the grip. Take a normal grip, and I would see how far my 730 swing went, how far my 9 o'clock swing went. Now it hit several balls with each increment. So 730, 9 o'clock, and 1030 swings. Okay, so I'll document that, and then what I'll do is I'll choke up on the club an inch, and I'll do the same thing. How far does a 730 swing go? 9 o'clock swing, 1030 swing, and I would document all of that. And then I would actually do one where I choke up 2 inches down the club. So that's most of the way down the club. You can only choke up probably about 3 inches, depending on how big your hands are, but about 3 inches on the club is probably the most you can choke up. So basically I choke up little by, an inch at a time and see how far all those shots go. So I did that all the way with my 58 degree. I'd do the same thing with my 54 degree, and I would document all of that. And what you can do is you can actually write that down and put it on a Post-it note, and you could tape it to your shaft, and then you could look on your shaft and you can see what that is. Personally, I don't really need to do that. I basically just remembered it and memorized it. So let's say I have a 60-yard shot, and I had a 9 o'clock swing with my 58 degree, completely choked up an inch. Let's say I'm choked up an inch on my 58 degree, and I do a 9 o'clock swing. That's my 65-yard shot. That's pretty much 65 yards every single time. But I have a 60-yard shot. So what do I do in this situation? Well, I can do one of two things. I can either choke up on the club a little bit more to give me to take a little bit off of it, or I can take a little bit less than a 9 o'clock swing. So maybe this swing right here, that's a 65-yard swing, and maybe I would only bring it up to just under 9 o'clock to take a little bit off of it. So that's how you kind of dial things in. And you can, if for all your wedges, and all the different choked up lengths and all the different 730, 9 o'clock, and 1030 swings, if you know how far all of those go, then you can really dial things in. And Clay goes over this. There is a video. I don't know if he went over it exactly the way that I did. I can't remember exactly what's in the video. But the clock system in our wedge, our Top Golf wedge system, there's also a video for that kind of talks about this in there as well. But that's what I'd recommend. That's really how you can really dial them in. It takes away, if you're a really big field player, it may not be. Usually, if you're a really big field player, you don't have that issue usually with distance control, because you have a really great feel for it. But for me, I'm not a real big field player. I need kind of things that are set in stone, a little bit more mechanical type thing. So the clock system is awesome for me. I can just think about, okay, I need to make this swing, and I know the club will go that far. One important note for this is that it all needs to be the same tempo, because the length of swing that you're taking is going to help you to accelerate the club. So if you're really going at your 1030 swing and going at it really, really hard, and then with your 9 o'clock swing, you're kind of doing it a nice and smooth and slow, it's not going to be, you're going to have a huge gap there. So you want to use kind of the same tempo with all of them, so that you're really able to control that distance. But that's what I'd recommend to get that. So hopefully that helps, and you'll be able to go out there and dial in those wedges. All right, let me get a drink real quick. All right, so Stephen B says, when coming through the ball on the way down, trying to achieve the straight line release, is the shoulder turn and hip clearing doing all the work, leaving the arms and club's natural result going through the ball? Or is there an effort from the arms to generate some of the power? If so, is the feel more of a pull than a push? Pull of the left arm than a push of the right arm? So this is a great question. And unfortunately, there just really isn't a cut and try answer for this. So to start the downswing, yes, you're going to have it's going to be all generated by your legs. But as the swing is progressing, your arms are definitely doing something and definitely pulling and pushing to come through to the ball. All of those things are happening. But is that what you need to feel specifically? So when people ask me, hey, am I making a conscious effort to do something? Am I my arms actively doing this? Is my leg actively doing this? Well, if you're trying to achieve something and you're seeing on camera that you're not doing that, then you are actively going to need to make an effort to make that happen, because it's not something that you naturally do. So if it's something that you naturally do and you don't have to think about it, you probably don't need to make an effort to make that happen, if that makes sense. So if you look on camera and you see that your arms are just flying in front of your body and your legs, your lower body isn't moving much at all, well, if that's the case, you probably need to focus a lot more on getting your legs and feeling like your arms are a little bit more passive into impact. You need to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. So you just got to look at your swing on camera and see what's happening, because the camera is not going to lie to you. So in the actuality of what's happening, all those things are happening. You're using your legs, you're using your shoulders to get everything going. You're pulling with the lead arm, you're pushing with the trail arm. All of those things are happening. But if your feeling is that you're only just pushing and pulling with the arms, and you're not naturally moving the legs and using the legs enough in the shoulders enough to get everything going, well, then you probably need to feel like you're using mostly your legs and your shoulders to get things going, and you're a little bit more passive with the lead arm and the trail arm. Now, does that mean that that's the reality is that you're only going to be using the legs? No, you're adjusting your feeling. The reality of what's going on is you may be more balanced and be able to get use the right sequencing, so to speak. So look at your swing on camera. You got to adjust your feel. Your feels are going to be different than my feels, or Brooks Koepka's feel, Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth. Everyone's got different feels, and you just have to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. If you are not doing something in your swing, you are going to feel like you actively need to do it until you do it so many times that it's second nature to you. And if you did anything else, you do it naturally. And if you did anything else, it would feel weird. So that's basically what it takes. I know it's really, really kind of complicated, but that's essentially what it comes down to. There's no cut or dry answer to it. You just have to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. Ayeko, okay. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Ayeko K says, "How do you stay in posture in the downswing? Is it a lack of muscle?" So, I kind of already covered this a little bit, but basically coming down steep and the way that you are squaring the club face to the golf ball is making it really extend a little bit. But it could be due to a lack of muscle. If you have a really weak glutes and really tight and weak hip flexors, it's going to be hard to control that. Your body is going to tend to want to stand up. It's going to be hard to rotate and turn into impact. So, a lot of people, have desk jobs and are fairly sedentary in their lifestyle. And if that's the case, you could have some weaknesses in there that make it more difficult. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. Just means it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult for you, and you're going to have to work at it a little bit more. So it absolutely can be a lack of muscle that's making it difficult. But usually it's because of those swing characteristics that I talked about. So Ayeko, if you want to see my answer to that question, hopefully you saw it already. But we are going to archive these. So after I get done with the office hours here, I'll go on and I will add this to the website shortly thereafter. So you can go in and check it out after. And the way to get to the archived office hours is just to, at the top of the page, you'll see office hours. If you hover your cursor over office hours, you can go down to the office hours highlights. You click on that page and you can see there. If you go about halfway down the page or toward the bottom of the page, there is a archive that you can check out. There's a playlist of the archive lessons or office hours that you can check out. So I'd definitely be taking a look at that. All right. All right. So John S. says, sorry about the glitch. I sent a question to Robin in an email response I received from him. I will ask you also. My problem is cupping of the left wrist and the downswing, and the ball shoots to the right. This is usually on the shorter wedge shots, but I have done this on full shots. Once this happens, I'm done. I have been as low as a 2 at one time. My game is really disappeared. So no worries, and I imagine Rodman will tell you a lot of the same thing. Well, first of all, cupping of that lead wrist at the top, the face isn't anything at the top. A lot of people will say, hey, if you're cupping that lead wrist, that face is open. The face isn't open, and the face isn't anything yet because it only matters what's going on at impact. It only matters that that face is open or closed at impact. But I will say, if you have that wrist like this, so cupped at the top of the swing, if you keep it that way, that face will definitely be open. So what you got to do is I would try to get that wrist flat or even a little bit bowed there at the top. And that's what's really going to help you to get that club face, because you don't have to manipulate it into impact as much as you're coming into impact to get that club face to square up and to have forward shaft length. So if you're cupped, you've got to flip the club, or you've got to really do a lot with your wrist to get that club face squared up with forward shaft length. So I talked about this a little bit in yesterday's office hours, but there's basically an endless array of drills that you can do. So there's actually there's training aids that you put out there that's kind of a glove type thing that if you do this, it will make a snap sound, and it's good audible feedback. So you can do some swings with that training aid on to kind of give you some audible feedback of what's going on. So I'd just be going up to the top, flat wrist, and then swinging down and through. With that training aid on. There's also you can, with your glove, you can put some T's in the Velcro of your glove so that it's kind of pointing down, and it'll poke you if you poke you in the wrist if you cup that wrist. So again, it's instant feedback to tell you if you're cupping that wrist or not. So you can play great golf with a cupped wrist. There's nothing like I said, because it's just about what's happening at impact. Freddie Couples, for example, he's won major tournaments, or he's won the Masters, and he has a cupped lead wrist at the top. So, and I have some yard work going on out there, so hopefully that's not coming in too loud on the speaker. But you can play good golf with that. It's just you got to manipulate that. So what I'd recommend is trying to get that wrist nice and flat at the top. To make it easier to square the face at impact. So those drills, there's the move drills. 1.2 from the move is going to get you to where you're turning that handle down. The face rotation drill on the website's good. If you search face rotation, it's basically what it is. So if you look at a cupped wrist, so let's say I'm going to hold it like this and have the club face, the leading edge, basically straight up and down. If I have a neutral grip, it's going to basically be like that, even with my left wrist. So if I have my wrist cupped, you can see that face is open. If I do the opposite, you can see that face is closed. So basically, you need to feel the opposite. Now, if you go up to the top and you feel like this wrist is nice and flat and you look on camera and it's like that, you may need to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. You may need to feel like your wrist is like this, but in reality, it's probably going to be like that. So I would just try to exaggerate it as much as you can. And, if you overdo it, then all you have to do is ease off of it a little bit. So that would be my recommendation there. And then John S. goes on to say, I also can't hit my driver very well anymore. I will make a good swing, but I can't repeat it often. I have no trust in what I'm doing anymore. Golf is not much fun either. I do not trust my swing like I used to. So I think we've all been there. I think you just got to focus on, probably need to just focus on impact a little bit. It sounds to me like you may be overthinking things, got a little too much going on in your head. That's a lot of times that's what happens. We kind of get off track, and then we're searching for that thing to bring it back. And we just keep searching and searching. We find a little something that helps, and then we're still hitting it bad. Then we find a little something else that helps, and we're trying to think about all these things in our swing, when we're doing it. And that's analysis by paralysis right there. You're going to really, really struggle if you do that. So what I recommend is look at what's happening at impact. What's happening at impact is you're hitting the ball way off the toe, you're topping the ball, you're chunking the ball. What's happening at impact? And then I would look at whatever piece of technique there is to help you work that out. And it sounds like you're working with Unlimited Swing Reviews with Robin. So he's going to do that with you. He's going to find what's going to help you the most, and he's going to give you the right feelings and things to make that happen. So that's what I'd recommend, is really just kind of focus on what's happening at impact to get you to hit the ball better. And if you just kind of keep it a little bit simple and focus on that thing, and understand that there may be other things going on in your swing that aren't exactly the way that you like it, but you can only work on one thing at a time. So get that first thing worked out, then move on to the next thing, and you'll see some better results going that way. So Steve W here, let me get a drink real quick. Steve W says, right-handed golfer, where should the right elbow be in relation to the right shoulder at limit of the backswing? So the right elbow at the top of the swing, not really important where it is. And really it depends on your flexibility as well. So if you have limited shoulder flexibility, you may need to really fly that elbow. It's completely fine to have a flying right elbow. Jack Nicklaus had a flying right elbow. And many times it's almost recommended because it allows you to get higher hands and to create more space to accelerate the club. So for instance, there's something that's called the 90-90 drill. So if you put your arm up like this, so I'm 90 degrees up like that, and then I have a 90-degree angle with my arm. If you hold it up like this, and now I'm going to try and rotate. I'm going to try and keep my elbow in the same spot and rotate that up. So you can see here, I can pretty much match the angle of my spine here by doing this. So that's about probably average. So if you're someone who does this 90-90 drill and you can only bring your arm up like this, you may need to have the flying right elbow at the top just because you don't have the flexibility. Because if you try to keep that elbow tucked in as you're going up to the top, well, you're really going to limit how much you can get your arms up there, and you're going to it's going to limit your distance. So I would let that right elbow fly. You just need to bring it back down in the downswing. So you don't want to let that right elbow fly and then keep it out there, right? You want to let it fly, and then in the downswing, you're bringing that back in. So that's the biggest thing. You just got to make sure that you bring it back in. So you can do that 90-90 drill at home. Go look in the mirror and do this 90-90 drill and kind of look and see where basically if it matches your spine angle, then you have a pretty average shoulder mobility. That's about where you want to be. Maybe you can go really, really far. A lot of tour players can go very, very far, but maybe you have a limitation there, and maybe you can only go like that. Well, if that's the case, it's going to be difficult for you to have a swing that doesn't have a flying right elbow. Like a Jack Nicklaus or something like that. Look at Bubba Watson, flying right elbow. So let that thing fly at the top. It's not important where it is. It's only important that you bring it back in the downswing, because it can't be in the downswing. That elbow can't be back here. It can't be out here. It's got to be coming into the side here in the downswing. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to get that club playing in the right place. So it only matters where it is as it's coming into impact, not at the top of the swing. All right. So Eugene F says, if you swing your club according to a clock, I think that's what he's trying to say. So a righty would be aiming at the ball at 7 o'clock, lefty at 5 o'clock. All right, let me read this again. Sorry. If you swing your club according to a clock, so a righty would be aiming at the ball at 7 o'clock and a lefty at 5 o'clock. Would this be applicable with your woods and irons? So when I'm talking about a clock system, I'm talking about you're looking at face on, and your lead arm is a hand of a clock essentially. So this would be 9 o'clock, 7:30, 10:30. So that's what I'm talking about. And you could do it with your woods and your other clubs, your woods and your irons. It's typically the clubs that you're really adjusting your distance with and need to close those gaps and taking like gauge shots. It's mainly your wedges, right? Because you're hitting a 40, 50, 30, 70 yard shots. But the rest of your clubs, as you get into higher distances, that's all taken care of with the gapping between your clubs. So you might hit a 4 iron instead of a 5 iron or a 6 iron, that's all taken care of with the gapping. You may take a little bit off of a club by choking up on a little bit, or maybe taking a 9 o'clock swing, or a little bit shorter swing to take a little bit off of it. So yeah, you can do that with all your clubs, but it's typically mostly applicable with the wedges. So I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about as far as 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock. But when I was talking about the clock system, I'm thinking about face on. And mostly with the wedges, but yeah, you can do it with other clubs as well. It's not really needed as much because that gapping many times is taken care of by the loft of the clubs. Whereas you have one club that you need to hit, 40 yards, 60 yards, 80 yards. You have to have a way to be able to gauge that. And the clock system is a very good way to be able to control that. All right, so James M says, I start the downswing, moving my left knee toward the target and moving my left hip back. Sometimes it works and sometimes it does not. So again, not really sure what the question is here, but that's a completely good feeling, because getting that left knee going, as that's getting you to start opening up. And pushing that hip back, you just want to make sure that you're opening up and everything as you're coming into impact. So it sounds like you just need a little bit more work getting used to the feeling. Not everyone hits a perfect shot every single time. So and it takes many reps. If you're trying to change a repetition or change a technique in your swing, especially in the downswing, it takes a lot of getting used to. Your old habits are always going to be creeping in sometimes. So you've got to just get the repetition in of the new habit that you want to create. And you just got to get that repetition in there so that it becomes second nature to you and it feels weird to do anything else. So it sounds like that's kind of where you are in the stage of kind of working on opening up your body a little bit more to the ball, but it sounds like you're on the right track there. You probably just need a little bit more repetition with it. All right. So Jim P says, if I try to shift my weight to the lead foot before I complete shoulder turn, I don't finish the shoulder turn. I try to shift weight as I start shallowing out the club. Seems to work. Is this correct? So I think a lot of people get confused between what a weight shift is and a pressure shift. So let me explain that a little bit. So when you're taking a step, when you're walking forward, let me angle this down a little bit so you can see my feet. So when I'm taking a step, when I'm walking forward, right? So my weight is moving in this direction. My weight is shifting, but the pressure that I'm putting into the ground, it's all in my back foot right now. So that's what's happening in the golf swing, is that you're going up to the top, your pressure is building in this trail leg, but your weight is shifting this way. So you're getting that weight shift moving this way, and then you're going all the way through into the full finish. So at the top of the swing, you're going to be fully loaded up. So if you're trying to feel like you're getting this pressure on your lead leg before you complete the backswing, it's going to be tough to make that full turn, because you're not turning, you're not putting that pressure into the ground to turn the body. So don't get confused between what a weight shift and a pressure shift is. Your weight is moving that way as you're completing your backswing. The pressure that you're putting into the ground is starting into that transition. You're really going to start to feel that pressure that you're putting into the ground. So a good way to do a drill to get a feeling for this is something that's called the step drill. So in that step drill, what I would do is I would set up at a ball. Actually, I wouldn't set up at a golf ball doing this at first. You can hit golf balls doing this, but it's a little bit, I would rather you get the timing of it down first. But just set up to where, as if you were setting up to a golf ball in your normal stance. And then I would just take a little bit narrower stance. And what I want you to do is I want you to go up to the top. And as you're going up to the top, I want you to put up that right foot, and then that's the feeling that it is. It's basically just like this. I don't want to hit my wall here, but basically you're going up and then down like that. So that's the feeling that you're going to have. So I think a lot of people have been a little bit confused about some of the videos that we've had. People are thinking that weight shift and pressure shift are different things, or are the same thing, and they're very, very different. So I like to equate it to, basically walking, right? Your weight is moving this way, but the pressure, you're pushing off in that direction. So that's what's happening in the golf swing. Your weight is moving this way, your pressure is building up. And then as you complete that backswing, now that pressure is going to the lead side, and you're coming down into impact with a lot of pressure in your lead foot. So it sounds like you are doing that. It's just a different feeling that you're having, but the reality is that you're probably getting your momentum shifting to the lead side while you're building up pressure in the trail side. All right, so let me get a drink real quick. All right, so Mauricio R says, what do you consider that is the most important factor for increasing club head speed at impact? All right, great question, Mauricio. The number one thing that we see, and this is whether it's a distance course that we have, or the distance clinics, or I've worked with Unlimited Swing Review students, the number one thing that helps you get club head speed is, excuse me, I just sneezed there. The number one thing is shoulder turn, getting that big shoulder turn. That's going to be the number one thing. So that's our power turn section on the website. So the more you can turn your shoulders, right, the higher and longer you can get your hands, and the more space you have to accelerate the club, the more speed that you can generate at impact. That's really the number one thing. That's more than lag typically. Now, if you're someone who has a big shoulder turn already and you're casting the club, well, lag might be the number one thing for you. But for most people, that number one thing is increasing the club heads, or the number one thing is increasing that shoulder turn, getting that big shoulder turn. Go to the extreme with it. Go as far as you can possibly go. And, if you get to where you're overdoing it, then just ease off of it a little bit. You may as well see how much you can get, because it's really going to be the number one thing that allows it. The shoulder turn is what allows you to create that space to accelerate the club. And that's really the number one thing for club head speed. So if you're looking for club head speed, I'd be looking at your shoulder turn, free up the hips. It all starts from the ground up. So you got to make sure that your hips are rotating enough, because if you're looking at your shoulder turn and you're thinking you're going to the max and this is the most you can get, well, most likely you're restricting your hips. You got to free up those hips, allow those hips to turn, because the amount of shoulder turn you can get is very largely dependent on your hip turn. So average shoulder turn on tour is about 118 degrees. 49 degrees is the average hip turn on tour. So if you're looking at, that 49 degrees is a big part of 118 degrees, and you're getting probably another 49, 50 degrees somewhere in there on average of the tour player is coming from the upper spine, that thoracic spine. So that's the separation of the hips and the shoulders. And then the rest of it is coming from the retraction and protraction of the shoulders. So if you're looking at in the backswing, this shoulder here, your left shoulder, if you're right-handed, is protracting forward. So what I mean by that is my shoulder blade is moving away from my spine. That's protracting. And then this would be retracting. So that shoulder blade moving toward the spine. So that's where that extra, that, remaining 20 degrees or so of shoulder turn is coming from. So you got to free up the hips. You've got to free up your shoulders, allow everything to turn and get as high as, create as much space as you possibly can. Get those hands as high and as long as you possibly can. Punch through the ceiling. And that's what's going to help you get the speed the most, but by far of anything. But that's just in general, that's what helps the most. If you're already getting as much as you can out of everything and you're casting the club, it might be lag. Or if you're doing all of that and then really, really hanging back, maybe it's a weight shift, a good momentum shift to your lead side that helps you use all of that a lot better. So it's hard to say exactly for you what would be the same thing, but pretty much across the board, everyone who increases their shoulder turn typically gets some more club head speed and more distance. So that would be the number one thing that I'm looking at right there. All right. So Ted V says, can you go over shallowing the move piece again? I've watched videos multiple times. I'm struggling to figure out the best way to get there. I understand the concept, just looking for ideas on how to get there. Do I allow the elbow to drop straight down at the start of the swing before anything else happens? So as far the move is basically, it's two things. So number one, it's the shallowing of the club. And what we mean by shallowing is in the downswing, where is the butt end of the club pointing? You want to be pointing at the golf ball or even a little bit outside of the golf ball is good. So that's about when the lead arm is parallel to the ground. You want to look at where that butt end of the club is pointing. Film your swing from down the line. Make sure you got that camera situated right down your hands. Don't have it down the target line or have the camera behind you. Have it shooting right down your hand. So that's pretty close to your toe line is where you want to have that camera pointed. And then you look at your swing and you see where that butt end of the club is pointing at this point in the downswing, lead arm parallel to the ground. And is it pointing at the golf ball or outside the golf ball? So a lot of times what you see is the club is steep like this. So you need to shallow it out. Now, if you got the club where it's like this, you're overdoing it. You're going to keep pulling down and you're probably going to go like this. It's pretty rare that you see over shallowing. Usually you see you're too steep, but that's what I would look at is where that butt end of the club is pointing. So if you're pointing in the right place, then you're shallowing it just fine. If you're pointing at the golf ball a little bit outside the golf ball, you're in good shape there. The next piece of the move is that squaring of the face earlier in the swing. And this allows you to rotate into impact because this club is on plane because you've got it shallowed out. That allows you to rotate into impact and have forward shaft lean in a square club face. So when we talk about turning that handle down, I'm going to have my basically the back of my left hand lined up with the leading edge of the face here. If I turn that down, that's closing the club face. So if I look at impact here, let me show you what. So if I'm at impact and I have, this is where most people are at impact, that shaft is straight up and down. See if I can get to where you can angle this down just a little bit more. There we go. So if I'm here at impact and I have my shaft straight up and down with a square club face, but now if I don't change my wrist angles and I get forward shaft lean, look what happens. Now my face is wide open. So what do I have to do at impact to square up this face? I've got to turn that handle down. So watch my left wrist, what I'm doing. Boom. That's squaring the club face there at impact. So that's what you're doing. You're shallowing up that club and you're squaring that face so that when you go down into impact, you've got forward shaft lean, square club face, and you can release that club out in front. If you come into impact and that wrist is breaking down and you're doing this action, that's basically why you're not getting forward shaft lean at impact is because you're not squaring that face early. And it could become from coming down steep, have that club down shallowing. So that's basically what the move is. So I would be really focusing on what this club is doing. So it sounds like you're thinking more external focus, like what do I need to do with my elbow to get this to happen? So I would really try to focus on the club, getting the club to do what you want it to do. And whatever your body does to make that happen, that's just what it does. It's going to seem a lot more natural if you think about what the club is doing. So I would try to think about trying to get the club to shallow, try to get your club to do this. And what you're going to find is naturally your elbow is going to want to do that, right? Because if you keep that elbow out here and you try to shallow out the club, it's going to be tough to do. Get that elbow working under. That elbow will naturally want to work underneath more if you're thinking about what this club is doing. Feel like you're getting that club to shallow out. And then turn that handle down to get that club face to square up as you're coming into impact. So just to tell you, your elbow definitely does need to come in, because if it's back here, you're going to tend to want to come down steep. So yeah, the elbow is going to do that. So no, if you're thinking about the club and you just cannot get this club to shallow out no matter how much you try, then at that point, it might be time to look at my elbow. What's going on here? Well, the reason why I can't get this to happen is because my elbow is staying out here. Well, at that point, then you may need to think, okay, I need to get this elbow coming in more in like this to get this club to shallow out. So that's what I'd be doing. Again, it's hard for me to know exactly what's going on in your swing without seeing it. But I would really focus on what the club is doing first. See if naturally you'll do what it takes to get that club to shallow out, because that's all that matters, is just getting this club. Because you can do this. I can bring my club in like this all day and still come down steep. That doesn't, just because I bring my elbow in doesn't mean it's going to shallow out the club. So focus on what the club is doing. Get the club to do that. And if you see something in your swing that's stopping you, or you're seeing that, hey, my elbow's out, then you may need to think, okay, let me get my elbow in and try to get that club to shallow out at the same time. And it'll probably help with that. So hopefully that helped you understand exactly what it is. But the move, all those videos in there, I'd watch them, watch them all over again. I don't know about you, but, I'll watch a movie. I'll really, really like it. And maybe I'll watch it again down the road, and I'll notice things in the movie that I didn't notice before, or, that I didn't remember, or something like that. So watch the videos over. They're not really, really long. It won't take you a bunch of time. It might take you an hour to watch all of them in the move. And there's also tons of videos on the website in the vault that supplement the move. And if you just search shallowing on the website, you're going to find a ton of videos to help you with all kinds of other different feelings to shallow out the club. But really, the number one drill on the website for shallowing and squaring up the face is that tennis racket drill. And I'm going to get a tennis racket in here so that I can demonstrate that in these office hours, because it seems like I bring that drill up a lot. So I would definitely be taking a look at that drill. That's really the one where I think people have the best results with it. So I'd be taking a look at that one. That's 1.3 from the move, tennis racket drill, how to shallow out the club. It's doing both. It's shallowing out the club and it's squaring up the face. It's the move, the pieces of the move, they're all mixed into one thing there. That'd be my best suggestion for you. All right, so I'll probably answer one more question here, because we're about to run out of time. All right, so Fergal T says, question about the other golf methods out there. Lots of contradictions between different methods, and I suppose that shouldn't be a surprise. I think I recall Clay Ballard said, and I'm paraphrasing, that if you are using the Taswi Golf system and you take a tip from another system, make sure they are compatible and not opposing theories, with this in mind. Just talking about other theories and things like that. So the Taswi Golf system is basically, Clay looked at all the best players in the world and all the things that they do in their golf swings. So we looked for what are called universal truths. So the things that every single good player does. So if you look at every single tour player, they all have a stable spine. Their spine's not moving all over the place. It's all stable. They all have this angle at impact with the spine where they're 20, 25 degrees angled away somewhere in there. Every single one of them does. If you look at their power turn, right? Every single one of them has at least a 90-degree turn in their swing. Even guys that look like they have short turns, like John Ram, Tony Finau, they're getting 90-degree turn. Now, could they get more power if they turn more? I think absolutely they could. I just think they just don't turn as much. I mean, obviously, they're both very, very powerful players, And, they probably just don't need to turn as much to get the power that they want, but they certainly could if they wanted to. You will not see a single person that competes in long drive taking a 90-degree turn. All of them are turning as much as they possibly can. So if you're struggling with distance, you need to be turning as much as you can. Those guys, they're not struggling with distance. It'll be interesting to see later in their careers when they're not in their 20s anymore. Maybe when they get in their 40s, I wouldn't be surprised if their swings change a little bit to get them a little bit more distance. But time will tell. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But they all get a power turn. Every single tour player generates lag. Nobody is casting the club. You do not see a single tour player casting the club. They all have this line at impact, this compression line. Everything's lined up and stacked up here. You do not see any tour players with bump tips. You just don't see any tour players there like that. And then lastly, they all get forward shaft lean and release this club out in front. You do not see any tour players with an early release where they're flipping through impact. Not a single one. And lastly, those are the 5 pieces of the Top Speed Golf system that I just went through there. Lastly, you all see they all shallow out the club and square the face early and get forward shaft lean. So we looked at all those things. Those are the most important things in the golf swing. And we try to kind of simplify it for you so that those are really the only things you need to work on. Everything else is just little tinkering here and there. So, there's I think most teachers out there are pretty good. And I think they more or less teach the same things, but I also feel like I've seen a lot of other programs, and I feel like they also concentrate on things that just don't matter that much in the swing. And people see a video like that and they say, well, I'm kind of doing that. And then they go and work on that instead of working kind of on the things that really, really matter the most. And that's 95% of the issues are the Top Speed Golf system and the move. Those are going to be 95% of the issues. The rest of the 5% is something else. So I'd be looking at your swing and are you nailing all of the 5 pieces of the Top Speed Golf system plus the move? And if you are, then it might be one of those other little things that might take you to the next level. But if you're not, those are the things that you need to be working on. So, and I think another thing is that if people look at all these different methods and things like that, and they jump around from tip to tip to tip, and it's really, really difficult to improve when you're doing that because you kind of get analysis by paralysis. So in general, I would just recommend that you just stick with kind of one method because that one method is that's all, it's all put together to work in a golf swing. Whereas if you mix what we do with 5 different people, you might be seeing some contradicting things and you're going to be jumping around all over the place and have just too many things going on. So I like to keep it simple, simplify it. There's 5 or 6 things that are really, really important in the golf swing. Focus on one of those pieces at a time. Maybe you want to work through all the level 1s, or maybe you want to work through all of the stable fluid spine section, then move on to the power turn section. Or maybe you really want to focus on power and you may want to just work on the power turn section and get all that worked out. Whatever you want to do, I would just stick to one piece, get that working a little bit better, get it ingrained so where it's second nature to you, so where it feels weird to do anything else. And then once you're there, you can move on to another piece and you'll already be doing the thing that you had done before. So if you, go on to another, you do like 10 reps of something, and then you think, well, I got it, I move on to the next piece. Well, most likely you didn't ingrain that. You just, you got it a couple times. It takes some time to really, really ingrain emotion. So it's easier to fully ingrain it. So that way you move on to the next piece and you're doing it and you don't have to worry about not getting it. So that'd be my best recommendation. But with that, we'll go ahead and close up the office hours here. I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. So if you'd like to join me, I'd love to have you. So save your questions. I'm sorry, I know there was some questions that were, there's a couple questions left that I didn't get to here, but at the top tomorrow, go ahead and bring your questions to tomorrow. Hopefully you could be here, and then we'll go ahead and get started again. Let me know if there's ever anything else I can do for you. Take care, everybody.